Hello, everyone. Welcome to our peer-to-peer session, An Artist Grant and a Dream, Part 1 with Alison Wells. My name is Hendrik Hernandez Resto. I am the Creative Specialist at New Bedford Creative. Thank you for joining us today. Before I go any further, please enter your first and your last name in the chat, along with your email for our records. Thank you. This peer-to-peer series is geared to enrich, educate, and connect creatives within our community. New Bedford is the home of artists, creative, changemakers, designers, entrepreneurs, and creative enthusiasts. The peer-to-peer sessions embrace the pulse that makes New Bedford so unique, while also expanding our knowledge and connections. New Bedford Creative offers many opportunities for artists and cultural organizations. Join our creative directory, apply to one of our grants or call for arts, list your event on our calendar, all for free at our website, newbedfordcreative.org. Peer-to-peer sessions is supported in part by the City of New Bedford through the American Rescue Plan Award and Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund, facilitated by New Bedford Creative at the New Bedford Economic Development Council. We would like to thank Mayor John Mitchell, his administration, and the entire New Bedford City Council for their continued support for the creative sector. This is just one component of a broader initiative to boost arts-based economic development and help the creative sector recover from the pandemic. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to go over the format for this session. Once I'm done, I will pass it over to Alison. Once Alison is finished, we will open up for Q&A. I will review the questions in the chat first, then we can continue with the Q&A live. We will have about 20 minutes for questions so that we can wrap up on time by 2 p.m. Just so everyone is aware, this session will be recorded. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat so we don't miss them when the Q&A opens up. Most sessions throughout this series have been recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel at New Bedford Creative in the following week. I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Alison Wells, who will teach us what she knows and has learned about artist grants. Now I will pass it over to Alison to share more details of who she is and what she will present for us today. Go for it, Alison. I am muting myself now.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. My name is Alison Wells, and before I get into introductions, I would like to thank Margot and Hendrik and the New Bedford Creative for having this for the Grants ArtNet, which I was a part of last year, and so honored to be invited and here to talk about my experiences with artist grants. I got an artist grant almost 10 years ago, and I know the importance of it, and it really just took my art career to the next level. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about that and how I used an artist grant to create my art business and to build my gallery that I have, my art gallery, for the past 10 years. Let me go on to, let me see how I'm doing this. Okay, so in this slide, this is just my cover slide, but there's a picture of my gallery. This is an old picture, and I changed it up a lot. You come in and you see it in many different ways. And this logo is a logo. This is my favorite painting. It's called Bast, and it's what I use for my logo. So if you see that, that represents Alison Wells Fine Art Gallery. And yes. So here I have, let me just move this aside. Okay, the panel was blocking my view. All right, so introductions. My name is Alison Wells. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, and I've been a professional artist for the past 27 years. And I say 27 years because I've been an artist my entire life, as long as I remember. But 27 years ago was the first time I was in an art exhibition. It was a group show, and I sold 2 of my paintings, and it was just the best feeling in the world. And that's when I started like seeing myself professionally and really going for my dream. I've also been an art educator for 24 years, and hearing those numbers really just make you like, wow, time really goes so fast. But I remember being an artist And my mother always telling me, you should really get into teaching. You'll be great. And I'm like, never, I don't have the patience for teaching, no way. And well, I was wrong, she was right, because when I finally went to teach and I taught at high school in my country, I was so nervous because just because you're a good artist doesn't mean you're a good teacher. But I didn't realize how much I would love it. And from then it just escalated. So I taught at high school level, I've taught at the college level, I've taught many after school programs, and I've even taught like an art therapy class with war veterans. So it is something that goes hand in hand with my studio practice as well. So I'm also a gallery owner for the past 10 years. October will be 10 years of my happy place, I call it, my gallery here on 106 William Street in New Bedford, downtown New Bedford. And I'm really excited to talk about that. And also recently, I have launched an online digital business where I teach online. And for many of us, we know how we've kind of pivoted our business online ever since 2020. Lots has happened. So I'm going to be talking about my process, some pictures here because I'm visual and, I'm sure all of us are creatives. We're all visual. So the first picture below on the second row is the opening of my art gallery. Another one is about a few years back of just the wall, and you see the bright colors, and you will learn why soon. And then another one where I also teach, and so I teach in my gallery space. So it's a space that has many different uses, and in this part 2, I will show you, the different things that I do in this space. Okay, an artist's grant and a dream part 1. So I have separated and divided this talk into sections so we can understand it, and I wouldn't go on and on clearly. And also what I want to do is like, I've created these little exercises where you can write down or journal. I know sometimes the term journal, people like, oh, Dear Diary kind of thing. People don't want to hear about journal, but I journal, I write down my ideas a lot, thinking back to where I started. It really helps me. When I look back, it helps me to where I'm going. It's always very important to see the whole picture and how you're changing and evolving as time goes by. So the first section will be my childhood dreams. So I will talk to you, I'll be telling you my story, but I want you to also think about your story, because we all have stories that can interconnect and change in different ways. So we have the origin story. I love that term. I think I only learned that term recently on the online business market kind of thing, but we knew origin stories from when we were watching cartoons and superheroes, like Superman and had an origin story. And so did Spider-Man and all of our favorite characters. But we have origin stories too, of our lives, of our business, and they can start at different points and places. Maybe you were in a job most of your life and you're retiring and you're thinking of starting a side business. And what's that origin story going to be? Where did it start? Where did that concept start? Part 2, overcoming adversity. Life is about, life is wonderful, but we have adversities. Things come in our paths, things kind of stare us in a different way. And I have learned with time to trust that. My mother, parents and grandparents always tell you, like, well, it happened for a reason, this thing. And I used to hate hearing that. But many times, especially in my business, there are things that happened and it needed to be in that way so that I can go a specific direction. So I trust those changes. And then the third part is where creativity meets opportunity, taking a leap. And that's where I'll talk about the grant. Getting the grant was an opportunity. And also something else came up right at that time. So it's all about timing and whether you should take the leap or not. So that's what I'm going to be discussing. Okay, so my backstory, origin story, I'm going to take you back for those who don't know me. Originally from Trinidad and Tobago. If you don't know where that is, I have a little map on the top there of the Caribbean. And I believe majority of us here today are in the US. So right where, if you can see my clicker right in this area, that is the end tip of Florida. So if you can put it into perspective, the Bahamas, Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, these are the larger Antilles, and these are the lesser Antilles, the smaller islands in the West Indies. And right at the bottom here is Trinidad and Tobago in orange. So we're larger in this area, but still pretty small island. We have 1.4 million people, and this is the shape of the island here. When I was a little girl, I used to say it was Santa Claus's boot. I loved the shape. So it's Trinidad and Tobago. It's a twin island. So this little area here, and then Trinidad. This is our flag, our national flag. And I just posted a picture, scenic, beautiful, because that's what we think of the Caribbean. And yes, we do have beautiful beaches and beautiful areas, but Tobago out of the two is really scenic. And so this picture is of Tobago. And that's why people will go there to relax, to, vacation. It's more touristy than Trinidad. Trinidad is more industrial. And we have oil, so there are a lot of oil industries, etc. And so this is a picture of the top left is an industry of Trinidad, oil industries on land and offshore drilling. So with that, and the reason I'm saying that is to connect to the steel pan. For those who don't know, the steel pan comes and originates from Trinidad and Tobago. And it is a fun fact. It is the only instrument invented in the 20th century. And how did we get the steel drum? From oil drums. So what a wonderful story of recycle, right? Repurposing. And so in the second picture here, you have two people creating the steel drum. And so what that is, you turn it upside down. This was the old time way of doing it. It's manufactured now, but you would put a heat or fire, a flame underneath, and it softens the steel, the metal, and then they hammer it with a hammer and get the notes. So in the fourth picture, you would see the notes. So if you know how to read music, you can play a tune or two. And then we have some finished pans here, and they're different types. So you have a whole orchestra of pans, steel drums. So we have like the tenor pan, and there's the guitar pan, and there's the bass pan that goes right to the ground. Some people wear the pan around the neck, and where you can walk and dance and play the pan. So I'm telling you all of this because it's very, it relates, it really is part of who I am in my culture. We have Carnival in February every year. So Trinidad and Tobago Carnival is one of the biggest carnivals, yes, same time as Brazil Carnival. And lots of people come from all over the world to perform, to have a great time, to party, to hear the pan. The first picture at the top is of a pan side or pan group. And you would have hundreds, maybe even thousands of people in one band, a pan band. And we have a competition at Carnival time called Panorama, where they compete. And so the steel drum, if you've heard it before, beautiful sound, and you can play almost any type of music on it. Like we play calypso, but I've heard classical music is beautiful, and at jazz, we have the pan jazz. A friend of mine that went to school with me told me about pan rocks. So they have like metal music and rock music with the pan. And so it's really interesting. And then the bottom pictures are just showing a little taste of Carnival. And some, like the first image at the bottom, these are men on stilts, and we call that Mokojambi. And that is part of old time Carnival characters. We still have them, but hopefully we don't lose them fully. But that's just one character. There's a series of old time masks, we call it. And it tells a story about colonialism. It tells a story about political and social issues and stuff like that. Same with the calypsos. And then we have more of the pretty masks with the beads and the feathers and all of that. But the reason I'm showing you this is like, look at the color, look at the movement, look at the vibrancy. And that comes across in my work. It also is part of me. So in school, we would always have, like, during carnival, just before the carnival, which is Monday and Tuesday, on the Friday, we would have a celebration in school, and we'd make our own costumes. We'd, so I was always involved in the arts, always involved with theater. My sisters were in the theater. So this was, it was something that was inbred in me. It's part of me. I always knew I was going to be an artist. There was no question about it. Okay, so that's a little backstory to me. And so my first section I'm talking about is childhood dreams, our origin story. So I want you to think about yours as well. So we're reflecting on the childhood aspiration of becoming an artist and owning my art gallery for me. So I can go back as far as 6 years old, telling my mother and father that I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to have an art gallery in Paris. I say this all the time. It's very funny. And I always tell people, it may not be Paris, but I have an art gallery in the Paris of New England, which is New Bedford. So that was always my dream. I spoke about it a lot. And to anybody who would listen, I wanted to be an artist. All I would do is draw and paint and create things. As I said, my sisters, I have four older sisters. They were all in the performing arts. And so they would have rehearsals at home by me. So it was very vibrant. All I wanted to do was create art. Now in school, I wasn't that academic. So my grades weren't the highest in school. And I was a C and B student, but in my art classes, I would get A's. And it was interesting because the school I went to, an excellent school, but they really did focus on academics. And that was, what are your grades? And there was somebody in my class, a girl in my class, she was the top of our class. She got A+ in everything. And for every single subject, when we had our exams, she would get A's. Except for art, I would always beat her and I would be at the top. And it was such a great feeling because always feeling like inadequate, like I wasn't as smart as the others in an academic sense. And now I'm realizing we all learn in different ways. That made me feel so special and I loved it. I did not want to let go of it. I knew I was going to be an artist. I knew I was going to have my art gallery in Paris and nobody was going to tell me any different. Okay, so exercise 1, and because of time, I'm not going to stop for you to do it, but you can take a screenshot of it and you can definitely think about it. This is recorded, so you can always go back. But I love these questions and I write them down a lot because it's interesting what comes out. So write down some of your early childhood interests, just like me. So for me, I loved anything art. I always wanted to create. I wanted to paint. I wanted to make things with my hands. The people and experiences, write down people and experiences that inspired you as a child. There were so many. I had an art teacher that inspired me. My sisters inspired me with all their friends coming over, doing theater. I would help at school for the set designs for theater, etc. I would win all of these awards. And when I would go on vacation with my parents and my family, we would go to museums. So those were things that always sparked. Also, I showed you my past with carnival. So that were experiences and something that was always there, which is so natural, part of me. Write down any significant events that fueled your passion. You might have remembered visiting a show or going somewhere when you were young and it really sparked something in you. And the last one, describe how you envisioned your future. What were your big dreams? As kids, as children, we dream big. Before anybody told us, don't dream, we dream big. Could you remember that dream you have? What was that dream? Big dreams and big imaginations before anyone squashed it. So write those down. So it's interesting, like if you don't go there, you start writing it down, it starts to open up and you're like, oh my gosh, that is true. I forgot I used to be into this. I forgot I used to love this. Okay, so that's the exercises. So part 2, experiencing adversity. And as I said, these things happen, right? Dashed dreams, how experiencing setbacks and negative feedback along my journey almost made me give up on my dreams. Some of you know the story, but many don't. And I will tell it again and again because it helps to inspire people. And so 6 years old, I told my parents I'm going to have an art gallery in Paris, telling everybody. And fast forward to about 13 years old, I'm at school, we're in home economic class. And my art teacher, not my art teacher, sorry, my home ec teacher, very different. She gives us the question, the dreaded question, right? What would you want to be when you grow up? Now, this, teachers have asked us this before. And I've always told, and they've been supportive, everybody, it's just, that the sky is the limit, etc. This teacher, however, it was my turn, I was so excited to tell her what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to have art gallery, etc. And I couldn't wait, just please pick me, pick me. Eventually my time came. I told her what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an artist. And her face just dropped and she said, "What? You are going to starve." She laughed, the whole class laughed. And I remember just feeling like stabbed with daggers in my heart. But of course, I had a reputation to protect. So tears came to my eyes, but I did not show anybody I was crying. And I laughed along. And what happened at that point, it was a dream killed, a dream smashed, right? And so, but the sad thing was, I wasn't old enough to be like, well, I'm not listening to her. I believed her. I trusted her. She was my teacher. She knew what she was talking about, and I was going to starve. And so I squashed the dream right there, right then. And many years, every time things came up, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be an artist. I'm going to starve. No, I'm not going to be an artist. So that really set me back for a while, trying to find different ways of doing things. I vowed I would never be an artist. It was like a swear word, right? So finding different things, time for college now, still like not going to art school, no way. And I decided, how can I do this halfway? Architecture. And so my art teacher suggested architecture. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. So I go to architecture school in the Caribbean, and I hated it. I did 1 year of it. I hated every aspect of it, except for the art part of it. But I was not good at physics and building science. I was good at drafting, so I could draft, my buildings, etc., and then the art part of it. But it just wasn't something I was feeling. But I felt embarrassed to tell my parents. They were paying all this money. So I decided, okay, I won't. I'll just do it. And I believe in a higher power. I believe in the universe, God, whatever you'd like to call it. And I trust in those things that happen. Nothing for me is a coincidence. And I'm in the end of the first year. And would you believe I get a scholarship to an art school, a full ride to an art school? I had applied for this like a year or a half. I didn't hear anything from them. I thought I didn't get it. I don't know what happened, but I'm just trusting it. And I'm like, this is, you know what? I'm going to art school. I am not fighting this anymore. And my parents from the beginning were always supportive. So I go to art school and loved it. It was the first time I was with other artists, like-minded people. And it really just opened my mind and made me feel, oh yes, this is for me. But I'm going to tell you, my teacher's voice always came up, especially when things didn't go my way or something happened. It's you're going to starve, you're going to be an artist, you're going to starve. But I'm pushing forward. And after art school, I go back to Trinidad. So art school was in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and it's called Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. I loved every minute of it. I come back home to Trinidad, and I actually get a teaching position, as I mentioned before, in high school. Okay, so that's a little bit, telling a story how my dream was smashed. But guess what? So when your dream is smashed, strategies. What strategies for resilience I used to overcome negative feedback? And so when I was 13 years old and my teacher said I would stop, I was too young to have any strategies. So I believed her. But as I got older, I went to art school, I came back, I started to teach. I was teaching art. So I was teaching what I was preaching, I was practicing. It was the best job because before I didn't want to be an artist. I had all these different side jobs, and I worked in a bank. I worked all over the place. I worked at advertising, which I didn't like, but I realized that I learned so much from, and I use today in my own marketing and advertising world. But it's interesting, that you then grow into yourself. So I found other like-minded creatives. So that was ways a strategy of resilience. So when I got back home, I'm teaching, I'm in the studio again. I joined a group called the Women in Arts in Trinidad and Tobago, and that really catapulted me into painting more, exhibiting, being an artist. I kept seeking mentorship. So other artists who were already where I wanted to go. So for you, think of other, business owners or creative people who are in whatever in your field that you see is there, pick their brain, talk to them. And I remember, I'm thinking back now to, wow, when did I get so brave? So I was like in my early 20s, and I remember knocking on doors, calling up some of the top artists in Trinidad. I can name a few: Leroy Clark and Bosco Holder, the top of the game. And, being nervous, but I just knew I needed to talk to them. And I'm like, wow, you were brave. You look back at yourself with a dream, determination, and you're proud. It's like, oh, thank goodness I did that. They took me under their wing, taught me so much. So I would suggest always do that. So find like-minded people, seek out mentorship. And the last one, I tried my best to keep a positive mindset, and I still do that, and follow my heart and my dreams. Now, it's all good to say, keep positive. You're not always going to feel like this. And it's all about mindset, but it's something you have to work on continuously. Like, oh, I've changed my mindset and I'm good. Because every stage of your business, every stage of your art career, you're going to get new pivots and new adversities that will strike up doubt, will strike up imposter syndrome, will strike up my teacher in the back saying you're going to starve, right? Yes, she comes up, but I know how to kill it. I find ways of, no, that's not true. It's in my head. So these strategies made me stronger and more determined. Okay, so for exercise 2, exactly what we talked before, and you can take a screenshot of that. You want to write down specific examples of setbacks, negative feedback you have received in the past. I would love to know, So I've heard one of my friends told me they also had a negative situation with a teacher, but it was an art teacher, which was even worse because the art teacher said, you might as well wrap it up right now. Forget it. You have no talent. So that is devastating. My art teacher was amazing. I loved my art teacher, encouraged me the whole time. But here was another teacher, the home economics teacher that, put a spoke. And it could be family members. I was fortunate to have my family members were all aboard. My parents supported everything I did in my creative. But unfortunately, in the beginning, it wasn't enough because I, trusted the teacher. The teacher is the one, said right and wrong kind of thing at school. The second one, write down how these challenges made you question your path or abilities. So maybe it questioned you and you stopped it. You didn't pursue it. But maybe now, years after, you're thinking about it. Okay. When you write down these things, so many ideas will come. Okay, the next one, how you overcome, write down how you overcame these obstacles or not. Maybe you didn't overcome them. Maybe you have to journal about it and talk about it and think, okay, well, let me revisit it and see how I can overcome these. Maybe just addressing it, right? The next one, how these experiences made you stronger and more determined. And if not, maybe now you're stronger and more determined to tackle these things and pinpoint, oh, this happened when I was a teenager. I forgot about that. And it really did change my perspective on something that I really was interested to. Maybe I will revisit it. Okay, so these are always good to do. I write a lot in my notebooks and, in every concept or area of my business, and I'm thinking about, flesh it out and think about where the ideas originally came from. Okay, so I talked about all of that. I was home, I taught at high school, and I decided to do my master's degree in my graduate work in the States. So I'm in Trinidad and I moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts, cold New Bedford, Massachusetts, but so beautiful. Of course, cold to me because New England is cold. I'm from the Caribbean and warm. Now, I couldn't find any of my own pictures of New Bedford, so I didn't want copyrighted pictures. So I used my own paintings. This was a series back in 2009 called, 2011, called Collage 02740, and that's a downtown area in New Bedford. And so I'm using these images just to talk a little bit about my experience. So imagine I'm coming from Trinidad. I come here to do my grad work. The first image here, they are all collages, no paint. This is collage, pieces of paper. This is a Star Store building, UMass Dartmouth. So I went to UMass Dartmouth. Star Store building was where the grad students were, and seniors, undergrad seniors. And also BCC was also there at the time on the ground floor. Sadly, now the school moved, so the building is there and empty. But this building is what brought me here to New Bedford. And I remember having a very specific plan, and that's another thing you need to write down too. What were these specific things in your head you swore you were going to do? You had a plan for everything and then realized, wait, hold on. Well, it was a 3-year program. They allowed you to do it in 2 if you accelerated your course. And I said I was doing 3-year program in 2 years and getting out of here. I was out. You know, I was interested in teaching at the college level, and I was going to get my degree, go back home and teach at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad. And so that was the plan. Well, the plan didn't stay because I fell in love with New Bedford. And what I didn't know, it was such a great place for artists. There were so many artists, so many collaborations. And like I was alive. For the first time, I was in a place where people got me. I wasn't like the weird artist, everybody's creative. We're all collaborating. We're finding new things. And so I kept extending my stay and creating different things. At a few years after, I get a job at BCC. And so for 9 years, I was at Bristol Community College teaching art, and it was wonderful. But in my mind, I wanted to get a full-time teaching position. Sadly enough, they don't really exist. A lot of the part-time ones, but the full-time teaching position are very few in between. So that was a plan I had in my head. I wasn't thinking of anything else, but I'm like, okay, well, I'll do part-time. I'll teach. I love to teach. And I have a studio. So I then get a studio upstairs in the Cummings building, which is right around the corner from there. But these pictures, just to show you through the pictures, the second one is the waterfront. We have a beautiful fishing waterfront, also the history of whaling. The third one is the house, Frederick Douglass's first free home. And so we have the history of the Underground Railroad. So, and then the last 2 pictures, the first one, that's the actual building where my studio was on the 2nd floor. And my gallery is in that painting. So the gallery is in the same building right there. And then the last one is City Hall. But I just loved the area. I love the architecture. I love the artists and the art movement and the history, the rich, rich history. And so I just put down roots, and I just enjoyed being here, being a part of this creative renaissance. And something was bubbling at that time in New Bedford. And you would see at that point, a lot of artists were graduating from UMass and staying. Before, they would graduate and leave and go back where they came from or go somewhere else. But here you had students staying, growing roots, creating businesses, having their studios, collaborating, teaching. And it was just so exciting to me. So that's showing you a little bit about that. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so this here is the Cummings building, the same building I talked about. And number 96, it goes up the stairs, and that's where my studio, my very first studio, art studio. I graduated from UMass, and I had a beautiful studio at UMass, and I had to put everything in my little 1-bedroom studio apartment. And eventually I got a studio. So on the right-hand side is my studio. And trust me, I just moved in. So it looks so pristine. When I found this picture, I couldn't believe how pristine that looked, but it didn't last very long. So this is what the room looked like about a week later. And it just continued to look like that until like when I had open house or open studios or AHA nights and people came in and I've, put up all the work on the walls and decorated like a gallery. So this was another studio I had after that. So I had that for many years. Then I moved to a little larger. I wanted a larger space. So I had a studio space and I could actually have work up on the wall and my clients would come in, people would buy my work. And I remember thinking, this would be nice to have like a gallery. Like I would love a space where I can teach, where I can have my work, exhibit my work, as well as sell the work. And, just putting it out there. And so that was where I was at that point. Okay, the third part, where creativity meets opportunity. And this is where the grant comes in, my first ever artist grant. So a friend and mentor of mine sends me an email one day about this artist grant. And it was from Assets for Artists. And this was the first time I saw an artist grant. There were many grants and creative grants, but many artists had to be affiliated with an organization to be part of that. Like this was the first time, and I'm not sure if it was very popular, more and more now, thanks to New Bedford Creative giving artist grants. But 10 years ago, I don't ever remember seeing many artist grants where artists can get a grant and they can do whatever they want to related to their art career, their business, their, improving things. You can do so many things with it. So this was the first time, but I remember being so nervous about grants. Like in my mind, grants were these hard hoops you had to jump through. Really? So I decided to look at it and take a stab at it and filled it out. And I received the grant. Now, at the time when I got the grant, I was not thinking, I was just thinking, okay, this is going to really help for supplies, materials. Nothing's wrong with that. A grant is perfect for that. I've gotten grants for that. Supplies, materials. I've gotten grants for, like if I was doing a show and the grant would be for framing my entire show to have at a gallery. So I remember wanting flat files where you can put large pieces of paintings, large pieces of paper in these flat, and they were so expensive. Some of them would go, $1,200 or whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to get flat files. I'm going to get the most expensive paints and brushes, no more old brushes. This was my plan until something happens. What happened? There is a storefront downstairs of that very same building, 106 William Street, that opens up. And a friend of mine was in there. He had a gallery in there. And he calls me up and says, a lot of people don't know this. It's just between you and me. The people next door are moving. I'm moving over there. And it'll be great if you come because I want a good artist next to me. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. But I'm like, what? You mean like open a space, like a gallery? He's like, yeah. He's like, and I don't want them to put a T-Mobile, because, sometimes in certain areas, you would see these things pop up. So I wanted to keep it creative. So I'm like, So I learned a little bit more about it. And then the ideas started to come. And that's when I'm like totally freaking out. I'm like, could this really happen? And what are the chances? Again, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in synchronicities. What are the chances that opens up right when I'm going to receive this grant money? Like it could have happened after. The space could have opened up and I didn't have a grant and I would not have had the financial means to open it. Or it could have been the other way around, that the space didn't open up and I had the grant and I just got my materials, etc. But that's the important part, the value of flexibility and, adaptability. Okay, so taking a leap of faith. So this is my gallery. So this was in the beginning. It's all, I put paper up and I'm working inside. And here I'm talking about exploring the pivotal moment of taking a leap of faith and pursuing my dreams despite uncertainties. I was very uncertain. Who was I to open a gallery? What? Okay, you're an artist, but are you a business person? Are you crazy? What are you doing? But that is where preparation and planning come into it. And also the grant, helpful aspects of the grant. So that specific grant was with the money, they also gave you you had to take a financial boot camp and a business training. And I remember it was 2 full days, morning to night. I was just like, whoo, a lot of information, but the most amazing information. I went to art school. Nobody taught me about business. We did not learn business. We learned how to write artist statements and apply to galleries and museums. But in terms of the business aspect, that was lacking. And I didn't go to business school. So all the things we think we need to have to open a business, right? I did not have. So that's why I say, if I can do it, please, anybody can. But the grant was very helpful. Just like New Bedford Creative with ArtNet. Look at all these trainings we can get. I did a lot of these trainings last year, learned so much because all of us have a wealth of knowledge in so many different areas. So I have one area, you might have another area, and we all piece it together and we get this wealth of knowledge. And I think if it wasn't for those trainings, it really wouldn't help me to see the big picture. And so it's important for preparation, right? So also I'm showing you some pictures below. So that's the front. And this orange picture, this was how it looked when I moved in. Orange walls, bright orange walls, these beautiful tiles that were there years before. And so I got in and I started to prepare. So I got a crew to come in and paint. Oh my gosh, they thought it was just going to be 2 coats. This is brick walls with the orange on it. It took like 6 coats, and here's the finished product right there. So it's a small gallery, but I feel it's big, like it's long, and opening up that space with the white really gave it a nice breathing room. So it was exciting. I must say that it took me a while. I had sleepless nights. I had a few months, the space was there. I already told the landlord, I was thinking about it. I had some time and I was praying on it. I was meditating on it. I asked my family, and that's why support systems are so important. In this picture, it's my husband there helping me put up my artwork. We haven't opened the gallery yet. We're putting things together. The importance of having a strong support system, so important. Family, mentors, the right ones, even if it's your family, not all family members might agree with what you're doing, right? They might be the naysayers or whatever. So you need to filter out and see who is in your inner circle. So my inner circle is my husband, Jason, my sister, my eldest sister, Eleanor, and my mom. And so Jason and Eleanor were like, go for it. This is great. This will be wonderful. My mother was a little more skeptical, but I was glad for that because she kind of hashed out with me, well, what else can you do? And I had just started to do private lessons. I was still teaching at BCC, but I was doing private lessons upstairs in my studio. And she's like, you should continue that when you open the gallery. And what else can you do? And she was the one who had gave me the idea of doing cards. And I was like, never, that's selling out. Now, I had to unlearn a lot of things I learned in art school. I love art school, but I had to unlearn. And I had to put on the business hat. So when I was in the studio, I had on the artist hat. That's one thing. But when I'm a business owner, and that's when I really see that was a pivotal part of my career, because that was the first time I had to look at things from a business point of view. So family and mentors are great, and community. Let me tell you about the New Bedford community. I was blown away because I'm the kind of person, and I'm sure many of you, you're trying to do something, keep your head down. People asking you if you need help, but no, I don't need help. You don't want anybody to help. You just, you're nervous. It's not going to take part. But people came out. My past collectors, they were like, oh, I have this beautiful bench. Would you like it for the gallery? I have this thing for the gallery. And I'm like, what? Do you need help in moving? It wasn't a far move. It was upstairs to downstairs. And then I'm showing this card rack because I gave it to my mother and I had cards. And I remember selling cards in just a basket. And I got this from Gallery X. For those who don't know, Gallery X is a gallery, co-op artist group gallery up the street from me, well known, you know, the head of the game. I mean, Swain School artists started it. Swain School started back in the 1800s. So it's a deep history of arts in New Bedford. And there, you know, the organizers were like, well, we were giving away this huge art rack, you know, we're doing over stuff. And would you like it? I'm like, what? I would love it. And as soon as I put the cards in there, the cards would just sound like it was so visually pleasing. And I was so pleased. That's just a small part of it. They also said, oh, do you need any other help? And I'm like, no help. And then my friend Chuck was like, well, what about lighting? Because I knew I'm going to have to do track lighting. And I said, well, I haven't even thought of that. That's going to take most of the grant. And he's like, well, I know somebody, an electrician, but I also have, we just did over our lights at Gallery X, and we have the old canisters and we have the tracks. I'm like, would you like it? I'm like, what? Now that would have been so expensive. So I was just like, I was blown away. Tears come to my eyes when I talk about it, because the way the community came out in helping me with my dream, I thought it was just, you know, I'm like, just solo, I'm doing it on my own, head down. And there is the community cheering for me. So that's half the game right there. And so I get the canisters and the tracks, and I get the electrician. That took up most of the grant, but I had this professional lighting, and I am so proud of it. But that's to show you how community. So this is fast forward to the opening night. Now I'm thinking I'm opening the gallery. Suppose nobody comes, like what, you know, of course, the thoughts in the head, the negative thoughts, all different things. And people came out. It was so beautiful seeing the community come out, supporting me and really being there. And I mean, it was a huge jump. You know, they're still in the back of my mind, you're going to starve from the teacher, right? But so this was just wonderful. I even had, it was AHA night, and we had cable access interviewing me. I was just on cloud nine. And the part of the reason for that was the community, just how everybody supported. And it was just, it was a great feeling. Okay, so back to exercises. So exercise 3, where creativity meets opportunity. So I want you to write down specific examples of where creativity met opportunity in your artistic journey. What were your emotions and your reactions? And I'm sure there are many. This was a main one for me, because I feel like this was a turning point where I was an artist. I've always been an artist, and I stopped being an artist. And I also, not that I stopped, but I added on being a business person. And this was the first time I really had to seriously think about business in my art career, and that I can do this. And no, I'm not going to starve, like my teacher said, you know. So it's those things are really good. So think of specific examples of where that, and I have other ones too. And some of I spoke about, you know, even going from architecture school to art school. That was an opportunity that took me in the right direction. The next one, unexpected changes in direction that arose. How did you adapt to these changes? Did you take a leap of faith or not, right? What was it? You know, like for me, I totally turned the direction. I got the grant. It was meant for one thing. Something else popped up. Could I make that turn? And I did. I took a chance. I took a leap, a leap of faith. But I also had a plan. So I don't want you to think I just jumped in. I do feel like I jumped in. And there were things, and I also have to say this too. A lot of people think that everything has to be perfect. All the T's, all the I's have to be dotted. The T's have to be crossed for you to start. Sometimes you just need to start, and the momentum will take you. You should have some sort of a plan, but you need to start. And the third one, what big dream in your artistic journey would you be excited to make happen today? You know, I would love to know, like some people, maybe you received this ArtNet grant and you had a plan for it. You knew exactly what it was going to be, but an opportunity came and you use it for something else. And what would that? So that's what happened to me 10 years ago. Okay, so just to wrap up everything, I talked about childhood dreams, the importance of dreaming big. So important. Even not being it, even as adults, we're not children anymore, but you can still dream big. Tap into that childlike thinking of anything is possible. It's a wonderful way of thinking. And, you know, I try to do it and I write a lot. So there's big dreams. Also overcome adversity, stay resilient, as I say. The thoughts are going to come into your mind. You have to stay resilient, positive, surround yourself with people who are doing similar things or where you want to be, or talking the same language, not people who are going to, you know, just present negativity, right? And also take a leap of faith. Embrace the right opportunities when they come and take steps toward your goal. And you know, just like I said, embrace the right opportunities, because there are many opportunities that come for us, and you have to know in your heart if it's right, you know. And as artists, many of you know, creative people, you know, it's the hustle, the take everything, saying yes to everything. And I did that, but then you burn out, and then you won't do anything perfectly good, you know, like you wouldn't take the things that you should focus on and give it some more time. So that's important about the right opportunities. And time helps with that. Okay, so that was the end of the presentation, but I want you to stay tuned because, you know, part 2 is on the way, Tuesday, June 18th at 1 p.m. right here on Zoom, an artist grant and a dream. Part 2 is juicy too, because, okay, at this point, look at all that I've done. I've opened the gallery, the community came out. I'm so excited, but guess what? Now is the real rumble. Now is the, you know, you can put money where you, what's that term? Put money where you're talking or speak.
Yeah, put money where your mouth is.
Put money, put money where your mouth is, right? And also, I will tell you, people, there'll always be somebody with a little, planting a little negative doubt, you know, like my teacher youth staff. There were people opening night, and 99% of people who came on that opening night was so positive, was so happy. But I had a couple people that sought me out, and they were like, Alison, how did you afford to open this gallery? So I said, I was so excited to say, I got an artist grant. Immediately they were like, so what happens when the money runs out? I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, well, we'll see. By that time, the money had already run out. So I'm like, I have a plan, it'll be fine. But at nighttime, when those thoughts start to come, it's like, oh my gosh, what happens when the money runs? I had a plan, but I was listening to the little, instead of listening to the 99% of people like, yes, let's go, you know? But that's what happens. So that's in the second part with what I will be talking about, hurdles and challenges. There are always some. Navigating ups and downs, create something that works for you. And I learned that, you know, some things you have to learn while you're at it. And I learned that there are right models and wrong models for you, not anybody else. So there are things I started that didn't work for me, and other things that I started and it worked. So I went more into that way, and also learning from experience. So that is it. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me. And this last slide is just keep in touch. And these are some of the links, you know, my website, online store, join my newsletter, subscribe to my YouTube, and then some of my social media. So I could, Hendrik told me I could copy and paste and put it in the chat. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Alison. That was fantastic. Very insightful, very rich with knowledge. We have, from what I look like, when I see here, doesn't look like there are any questions in the chat. So if people want to unmute themselves and start asking questions, please, by all means, we can do that. We have about 3 minutes, so we can field some questions, and then I'll do a little bit of an outro.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your testimonial. It was really beautiful to absorb it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Bree. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, nice seeing you too, and everybody. That's all.
Thank you very much, Alison, for hosting this and doing this.
Thank you. I'm glad you made it.
Thanks so much. I'm very new at this, so I'm learning so much.
Oh, good, good.
I'll see you next week. I do have one quick question. I no longer live in New Bedford, or is New Bedford Creative open to people that are still in Massachusetts, but maybe not in the New Bedford area, or?
I would leave it for the New Bedford
Yeah.
Creative ones.
We do have grants that don't need you to live inside of New Bedford, but those grants would have to be facilitated within New Bedford for programming or placemaking or space activation. So we have artists everywhere in wicked cool places. And those two grants happen. The open enrollment for that is towards the end of the year. And you don't have to be from New Bedford, but your facilitation of that programming and the funding has to be used within New Bedford to facilitate for residents of New Bedford. ArtNet was very specific. ArtNet is no longer active. It's something that we closed out. We were looking to fund 100 artists. We're funding our 100th artist, right? Fingers closed. What's happening with that, with the stipulation for that one was, yes, you had to live within you had to have a New Bedford residence.
Okay.
But that does not mean that you can't access like our newsletters and stuff like that and still get information, because those newsletters include information that for artist grants that might be available throughout the state. Places like Mass Cultural Council appeal to the entire state. Places like New England Foundation for the Arts appeal to the entire New England region, and don't need you to be in New Bedford.
Thank you.
No problem. Barely ever comment on these things. I always try to leave it open for everybody else. Alison, I wanted to echo on the letting go of selling out. That was something that was really big for me, that I had to learn to do along the way in my artistry to make everything kind of go a little better and more easily, was this whole idea of holding on to 15-year-old me's ideals at 35, where I was like, oh no, that's what a sellout would do. That's what a sellout would do. And as soon as I stopped doing that, every door that I could possibly think of opened. And it was a lot less friction.
Yes, definitely. And that's the thing. Going to art school, I loved my experience in art school. I learned so much. But there's this concept of and I did fine arts as well. So they're different, they're different departments. So you have your artisanry department. And so I think, they're led in a way that it's okay to be your own boss, to sell your own artwork. But in terms of fine art, and this happened in undergrad and grad, it always was this echoing thing where it was selling out if you sold your own work. It was better if you had a gallery sell your own work and take 50%. It's better if you had the museums, and it's this big high arc, but it's not realistic for everybody. Because there's a very small percentage that get their 15 minutes at the MoMA or whatever, And so we're running down this concept, and we're like, no, we can't sell our own work. It's so gimmicky, or you're selling out. Or it was the same thing. Making prints, making cards is selling out. But then I realized, as I said, talking to my mom, this is a business. At the end of the day, it's practical. Not everybody, my mother's like, not everybody can buy a many $1,000 painting. Make it accessible to everyone. You have prints of different sizes and costs. You have cards of different, but that's what a business is. And I remember saying, oh my gosh, people are gonna cringe, but you have to just let it go. And it's not about people. It's not about your professors coming and seeing. And it's so funny because I had it in my mind. Many of my professors came and they're so proud of me. They're so proud of how I could take this to a business level. We didn't learn any of that. So in my mind, I was like, my professors are going to cringe when they come and see a card rack and a print rack. And they didn't. It was this thing I had in my head that I had to be a specific way. And you let that go and you can just be free and really listen to where your business is going and how you're doing things. It really is freeing.
Yeah, it is. I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. This was a great session. I want to also thank Alison for all of her hard work. I also want to thank our funder, the City of New Bedford, for making this possible. Please make sure to visit our website, newbedfordcreative.org. That's newbedfordcreative.org, and join our free creative directory. This is a list that we use to promote on our social media throughout the year. Make sure that you add your events, galleries, exhibitions, and more to our calendar page that is linked to South Coast Today. We want our creatives to excel, and we are here to help. I want to remind everyone that we have plenty of sessions coming up. Please join our next session. Actually, don't join our next session because as of right now, it is very much sold out and they are at complete capacity. That one is demystifying the sewing machine with OpShop at Interwoven Gallery. It's at 634 Pleasant Street. That'll happen tomorrow from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. But from what I hear, they are very much at like indoor capacity. So in the chat right now, I have uploaded the one after that, which is not at capacity for registration yet. And that is a direct link. That is B, the Queer History Bard with Beatrice Alder. That'll be happening Thursday, June 6th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Gallery X. So this is a live one. This won't be like this one. And that one is not fully registered yet. So if you wanted to join a peer-to-peer session, this one is very unique, very interesting. Beatrice Alder is an amazing person, and this one should be as equally interesting as all the other ones we have. It's right there in the chat if you are interested. Lastly, the recording of today's session will be on our YouTube channel within the next week. If you want to find us, we are at New Bedford Creative. And that's an easy way to find us on YouTube. I wanted to thank you all again. Have a great day, and thank you for your participation.